Hi, everybody. My name is Angeline Gavino, and I'm the Vice President of Customer Success at Catalan.
Hello, everyone. I'm Florence, Director of Marketing at Catalan. Welcome to the Women in Tech podcast, your go-to space for celebrating the remarkable achievements, stories, and insights of extraordinary women in the ever-evolving world of technology.
Each episode is a journey into the lives of these amazing women, where we uncover the stories, triumphs, and wisdom they've gained along their unique paths.
So, buckle up for the intimate conversation as we delve into the incredible stories of our outstanding guests. Hello, everyone, and welcome aboard. So, it's delighted to have you all with us. For those tuning in for the first time, a warm welcome to our Women in Tech series. So today's episode is nothing short of special as we are introducing two incredible female guests. So joining us are Michelle, a seasoned leader in the tech domain, holding the position of COO at Curiosity. And we also have Lina, a young and ambitious technical analyst from Curiosity as well. So before we jump into today's exciting topic of sustaining success and the key to career longevity, let's take a moment to get to know our guests a little bit better. So let's start with you, Lina. I would like to know your journey from when you started and where you are now. Could you share a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you so much again for having us on. We've been looking forward to this a lot. I guess where I started from is really outside of tech. So I went to a fine arts school, and that was my background. I was very focused on creativity. So when I first got out of school, I worked in a lot of fields surrounding creativity. So I would do project management for toy production companies or screenwriting companies. So it was always around operations and then usually something creative. And when I first started working here at Curiosity, it was almost 3 years ago now. And it's a little bit different. It's definitely creative in its own sense, but it's very tech. And I was scared at the time because I was like, oh, this is so different from what I do. But thankfully, the project management skills transferred over. And eventually, just because we're such a small company and you get the opportunity to try a lot of new things, I was offered the opportunity to try and do pre-sales or technical analysis. So we went ahead and tried a little bit of a trial period where I worked a bit more with customers and I just learned the technical skills I would need in order to do that sort of role. And I ended up really enjoying it. And Curiosity was kind enough to support me transitioning over to that role, which I've now been doing for a little over a year and a half. So that's been my journey into tech. It was definitely not something that I anticipated at the time, but it's been really rewarding and great.
Wow, what a transformation. I think I can resonate with you a lot because I came from a total different industry as well, coming in from retail, hospitality, doing a lot of sort of lifestyle projects. And then coming into tech is definitely something is so different, but it has its own charm, definitely. So I'm very curious to ask more details in a little bit about your journey. So in the meantime, I'd like to head over to Michelle to share a little bit about herself and your journey.
Yeah, hi everyone. Thanks for having me as well. Echoing Lina's thoughts there. So I've kind of been in the tech industry probably for about 25 years now. Again, didn't really kind of set out to be in that space. It just kind of happened by chance, particularly in the kind of testing part of it, which I think is, very common for a lot of people. I actually started off in an office admin role, so similar to Lina in an operations role. But I was working for quite a small company at the time. And I think they kind of saw I had a bit of an eye for detail and kind of liked to kind of do things properly, quote unquote. So they kind of pushed me and gave me the opportunity to go into a testing role. We were a very small company. We were like five or six people, so it wasn't a ginormous company. So I had that opportunity, really enjoyed it. I come from a kind of technical family anyway. So my dad was a programmer back in the COBOL mainframe days. So it's kind of always been in my blood, I guess. So I've always grown up with some form of kind of computer in the house. So it kind of came naturally to me to kind of move in that direction. Just really enjoyed it. And I've kind of been there ever since, really. And I've kind of almost come full circle now. Sat probably in the testing role for a good 15 years probably. But then I kind of started to enjoy the kind of more project management, program management, team management side of things, and kind of how, working with people and trying to get people, to get the best out of people. So that kind of took me down a kind of a slightly different route, kind of away from the testing side, but kind of still in the tech world. And that's kind of where I've sat ever since, really. So so I'm kind of a bit more in the background now compared to kind of some of the techies that I work with, but still, super into the technical side of things, and still, super interested in what's going on in the tech world.
Wow, that is very interesting. I mean, I can't really imagine if I sit at a family dinner and start to talk to my dad about programming and frame. Yeah, so is it something that it happens in your household?
Yeah, so actually, funnily enough, my dad kind of moved. He got made redundant a couple of times in his career, and he moved more into a QA and testing role. Prior to him retiring, and we often have conversations now around, quality and testing, and if this bit of tech on his mobile phone had been tested properly, or the quality had been looked at a bit more, then it would work better. So we have some interesting conversations sometimes. Yeah, and I have a 16-year-old son as well, so he's probably more technically savvy than I am, these days. So he's all in there with all the modern tech. So I'm still learning learning from him now.
Yeah, so your dad were learning from you, and now
Right.
from your son.
Yeah.
Very interesting. All right, so before we jump into today's episode into more detail, so I'd like to highlight some of our topics that we will covering today. So the first topic that we're going to talk about is really balancing the technical expertise and leadership skills. So I know that, Michelle, when you're handling the responsibilities of a COO, how do you sort of manage that and then still stay on top of your tech skills? I know that your son is one of the aspiration, but is there any other sources that you sort of try to keep up with the new tech skills while managing the COO responsibilities?
Yeah, so I think, I'm lucky in that we work for a relatively small company still. So I still get to, touch base with everybody. And that includes the developers and the kind of techie side of the company, that the likes of Lina and the developers. So I often have conversations with those, and I'll join meetings or brainstorming sessions with those guys. So I'm kind of always picking up kind of new technology from them, or kind of hearing about new things from them, which I would then, if it kind of takes my interest, I go off and learn a little bit more about it. The internet's wonderful for finding out anything these days. So that's kind of my main source. I don't specifically kind of go on any kind of techie courses or anything like that to kind of keep myself in the loop, but I've certainly got kind of my finger in so many pies within curiosity that it's hard not to become, hard to become kind of, abstract from it. I'm always involved from we're a tech company, so it's difficult to not kind of be involved one way or the other.
Yeah, definitely. So I'm from marketing, and what we have to keep us inspired all the time, because I mean, with our day to day, we can be very busy with our responsibilities and duties and tasks. So then one of the things that I learned, and I think this is also can applicable for other department as well, is that we have a channels called marketing that inspires, right? So I would imagine, if we have a bunch of our developers in there, and then just sharing fun stuff and then inspiring stuff that's going on, and then not afraid to sort of share that with the larger team. I think that would give us a little bit of, hey, great idea, or sparks of new things that's going on in industry. And, I think something that is always frequent, always updated, that would really give us, a different perspective in terms of keeping our knowledge up to date. So thank you for your sharings. I think that is very crucial in terms of how we can communicate day to day with the people that is working with us every day, and then just outside of the task, and then all the project that's been going on. So
Absolutely.
yeah. I have a question for Lina. So from your shift from a purely management operation roles to a very technical role as a technical analyst, was there any sort of bumps into these transitions, and how did you manage to overcome these hardships?
Yeah, so I think the main thing that I still struggle with from time to time is feeling like I don't know enough, even though I do know that I know enough to perform my role and to have conversations with our clients. I think the thing with tech is it's such a big space and it covers so much that while I might know a lot about this one specific area, I may not know a lot about, let's say, networking. That's still a relatively new area to me. And sometimes I'll speak with someone who's been working inside of networking for like 30 plus years. And at the time when I was first starting out, it just felt really daunting, the vast amount of material I felt like I had to learn. I was like, oh gosh, how am I ever going to be able to, I guess, handle all of this information? It was just so much. And I think just from talking with other people on my team who've also maybe transitioned from outside of tech into tech, or just people who have a bit more experience than me, like Michelle, they just suggested narrowing down the scope because a lot of it is built on these fundamental ideas. So I took a couple of courses. I just really started from the ground up. And then I slowly realized that no one actually knows everything. It might seem like it because they have, 10, 15 years of experience, but everyone is continuously learning in tech. And I think that's one of the things I really like about it. And I learned a lot in my day to day too, just from working with our customers, because everyone kind of has a different, I guess you could say, like framework around testing, all of the processes, their tech stack. So I learned a lot just from working with people. I think it's a bit of a collaborative process, but yeah, that was definitely a challenge for me at the beginning.
Wow, I like that. I really think that it's not just applicable to technical roles. I think anything nowadays is so robust with progress, with information, with new things that, hey, it can be applicable to one business, but for other business, it's so different. And with the same, every company, they will have different ways of sort of evolve their business strategy. But as you said, something they're always going to be fundamental things that we have to go back into and really just remember that's the core of what we're doing. So I really resonate with your sharing. I think for me, I'm relatively younger in my career path as well, and always feels like once we're trying to be creative, when we're trying to find new ways, where while it's a learning process, and we find that it's very important to do that. At the same time, we just got to reflect back and just zoom out a little bit to see if the core and the fundamentals is already there, or we should sort of revert back to it a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sounds good. So in this progressive sort of environment, and the world is changing so fast, I think one of my questions for Michelle first is, with your extensive tenure in the tech industry, so I imagine back when you first started, is not as easy as today to sort of identify and leverage opportunity for your career progressions. There was no, LinkedIn job, or there's not, a lot of courses or certificate that you can find and learn on your own. So I would like to know more on how did you sort of proactively evolve yourself to broaden your personal and professional development through time?
Yeah, great question. So I think a lot of it was just luck, I think. But also I've always worked within companies that have given me the opportunity to grow. 90% of the companies I've worked for have been relatively small startup companies. So there's always that opportunity to try different things, kind of move around in different roles, and have that opportunity to find what works best for you and what, your skills suit. So I've always been very lucky in that sense. I've always had that opportunity. And I've always had people around me who have a kind of a similar mindset to me. A lot of the startups that I've worked for, everybody's kind of working towards the same goals. We're still very small. So, we're always trying to help each other and work with each other. So we support each other a lot and help each other grow as well. So that's always kind of been a great thing for me. I think the other thing is really, just trying things and having that ability to just try things. And if it doesn't work out, then you learn from it and don't do that again, but you learn from it and grow that way. And working for smaller companies allows that as well. So that's kind of where I've been able to kind of to achieve things and be able to kind of be successful.
Yeah, I really love that. I think that taking calculated risk and not afraid of trying new things, and it sounds very cliche, but not too afraid that the failure, it's always going to be a failure. I do believe that every single step of your decision making process is because that your intuitions, yourself is telling you that's the right thing to do. And if it's something that, you can come back and sort of like, hey, I can do that even better, or I can learn from that. And I definitely think that it's just going to get better from there. I think that for someone like you, in 25 years in this tech industry, there are definitely times where you find difficult things to overcome. And then, in the scenario that, you're not sure where you can get the support system from. It's not as easy as it is today, where we can really just reach out to the community, women intake or mentorship. So I definitely think that that self-evolution is something that is very crucial, even if, that is something that 20 years ago or even today, where we're very, blessed to have a lot more resources than you did back then.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I was lucky that I had a great kind of work family around me at that time when there wasn't that kind of wider community that you kind of talk about. I was very lucky to have colleagues who were very supportive. So that was, I was very fortunate in that sense.
Sounds great. And for this question, I'd like to ask Lina. So I think even until today, I think there's still the some of the stats that shows that women has been underrepresented in the technology fields for years. So I know that to bridge this gap, a lot of company has been trying to implement different strategy to not only attract women to tech roles, but also has to give them the support system to be successful within the industry. What are your thoughts about, tech companies in general can enhance this support system and sort of promoting resilient and empower women to, evolve in this field and be successful in here?
Yeah, well, I can speak to what I was really lucky enough to receive here at Curiosity, where it really helped me in the transition. Where number one, I guess there's always people like Michelle said, I've been fortunate enough to have a work environment where people are really supportive and they have the patience when I'm learning something new versus maybe, at the time there's some sort of huge project we need to deliver on, but they understand that in the long term, allowing people to learn new skills along the way will have a huge return on investment. So I think I've just been really lucky to have people who believed in me and were willing to give me that opportunity to learn, and also to learn and make mistakes where I wasn't, 100% right all of the time, but that's okay. And they understood that. I think that really helped me. And then alongside that, I would always sort of have a supportive mentor role, or just someone that I can always go to ask questions, even if it was outside of some immediate deliverable I was working on. So for example, my current manager and I, we sit down every quarter and we designate a section where every one day of the week, I have 4 hours where I can work on just developing my skills. And he'll list out a couple of examples that he thinks would be helpful. And then I can kind of delve into that and he checks in with me. And I found that to be really helpful. So I think it's really about the people that you surround yourself with. And if companies can help structure that and put that as part of the goals of the company and your own progression, I think that would really help women in general.
Yeah, I think that is very crucial. Especially not just women, but also that is very important to anybody that is just stepping into new roles, or especially in the tech industry where we need a lot of that mentorship from your managers or the people that your colleagues, right? And that support system, it's definitely day to day. And sometimes I joke that I spend more time with my colleagues and with the company that I work with more than the time that I spend at home. So really to ensure that, hey, we're successful in the project we're delivering, but at the same time, we need to be also to empathy, to show empathy, to really understand that we are all human, right? If we need some time to understand certain things or process a certain topics differently, it's just really depending on the person itself, and we all learn differently. So I really think that it's very crucial to find the right mentorship within the network that you have, whether it is within the company you work with or outside of it. So that brings me to the next questions, and I like that we actually bring it up pretty naturally. Is so I've seen some of the studies that says around 59% of C6 women reporting that they have had a female mentor at some point in their career. So I'd like to ask Michelle if you've had anybody that you would call a mentor or somebody that really aspire you during your journey in your life to where you're at today. So have you experienced anything similar in your journey?
Yes, absolutely. So I had, I was a part of a more formal mentorship program, probably about 10 years ago, 12 years ago, where the company I was working for at the time had a full mentorship program where other females from in the company, from different parts of the company, not necessarily tech, would come together and kind of talk things through, and you'd be assigned your own mentor that you'd meet with on a monthly or quarterly or however you wanted to work it basis. So I learned quite a lot through her. She gave me recommendations on books to read. We discussed kind of similar situations that we'd been faced with and kind of how she dealt with it and how I dealt with similar situations. So that was really good. That really helped me. At the same time, I was part of kind of more wider programs that the company had around supporting in women in tech. So whether that was going out to schools and working with other females within the company to promote tech to females school age, or we would have external companies come together, females from banking or retail, where we'd get together and discuss things as well. So that was all really good, and I kind of learned a lot from those. But I think also not just from my work life, also my personal life, I've learned a lot and had a lot of mentors on that side of things. I play a lot of sport, so I've always been involved in teams, playing sports of one type or another. So the coaches that I've worked with have always kind of mentored me, and I've learned a lot of kind of man management skills through them, and how they've kind of managed the team that I've played for. I was a captain for my hockey team for a very long time. So I worked with my coach quite a lot. So he became a very close mentor to me in terms of me learning how to work with other people and how, you make certain people tick in different ways. So that all those sort of transferable skills have been really helpful for me. So I wouldn't say I've had one particular mentor, but I think I've kind of picked up various people along the way who I've kind of attached myself to, and I've found that we kind of bounce off each other, and we can kind of talk and discuss ideas, etc. together. So yeah, it's kind of a bit of a mix of people for me.
Wow, I love that. I think it's not easy to find a mentor that can guiding you in terms of having that lifestyle that is balanced yourself within work and life. So I heard you mention that you have a mentor that it's sort of like pushing you to have hobbies and have be the captain in the sports team. So I love that very much because I feel like, especially for women in Asia, especially for myself, for example, there are a lot of people around my age that is struggling with how to balance that healthy lifestyle in terms of really taking care about yourself and really juggle between family and work and taking care of parents, taking care of other people. So I think that women do have very different roles within their daily life. And we also only have 24 hours, right? So I really think that being able to find a mentorship that is not just work related, but really to sort of push you to be like, hey, a few times a week, let's go for soccer or let's go for tennis. Let's do something together that is really bring you out of your house and not letting you worry too much about work all the time. So I think that is a really needed balance for work and life integration. So I think this is something that I myself is going through. Not sure. Maybe Lina, do you feel the same way with you that you start to also juggling in terms of upskilling your knowledge at the same time ensuring your work process and also having the work-life balance aspect?
Yeah, I think it's tricky to navigate, especially, I currently don't have any children, but I imagine in the future I will. And I'm like, oh my gosh, how do mothers do this? Because it's already so much. And I don't have anyone dependent on me, rather like outside of my cat, she's very understanding of my work-life balance. So I feel like for me personally, what's been working is just not pushing myself too hard. I tend to have I guess I would consider myself quite driven. So when I have extra time, maybe on a weekday or weekend, I'm like, oh, maybe I can finish this course or maybe I can go do this. And I found that there's actually the thing is doing too much. You need that downtime in order to actually process and integrate the information you're taking in. So I've just found when I actually allocate my time and do things really maybe smarter, not harder, and be really efficient with my time and allow myself that rest to really think about what I've kind of worked on throughout the week, I actually find myself growing a lot more. And I'm also a lot happier just because I find I'm not consumed by one or the other. And it's just a nice balance of it. So it's definitely something that I'm still working on as well. But I think really kind of regimenting those time blocks, let's say, has helped me a lot.
Yeah, I think that's definitely very important. I think self-care is definitely something that we often overlooked. And self-care here is not just physically, but mentally also. And you just mentioned about how, you feel much happier when you started navigating through, there's a certain amount of time in a day where your brain can process information and learn new things. And there's a certain time in the day where you just need to get some rest. Give it a little bit of rest, meditate for a little bit, even 5-10 minutes, and also finding new things to do. And I really think that when you mention about how you still are looking for expanding your network, I think that it comes from there, right? And I for example, for myself, I do find that finding people that working in the same field, but at the same time, if we have the same hobbies, let's say like tennis every weekends, or going for drinks, going for brunch every weekend, and sort of sharing that in a more of a calm setting or chill setting, that is much easier for us to sort of balancing that work and life aspect.
Yeah, completely agree. I think I'm lucky to be a part of a team that does meet outside of work quite often. So we'll either, being in the UK, we'll go to the pub and we'll have a dinner together, but we're also kind of talking about work. It's just a bit more loose in terms of maybe what we're trying to achieve in like a particular, it's not a meeting, we're just talking. And I find that talking about work in that setting often leads to new ideas or just new things I haven't thought about before. So yeah, completely agree. Sometimes, even just going out with your colleagues and going outside of your normal setting can be really helpful. And it helps to kind of maintain both sides of that balance.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's very helpful. And it's the same thing to me. Sometimes you do need that 1 or 2 drinks to just kind of like let loose, and then because I feel like within the workplace, everybody is obviously very focused in what they need to do. And then, sometimes you find different aspect from your colleagues by just get out of the office, have lunch with each other, have drinks with each other, go for happy hour. And then there you find, really great friends, just from your working environment. So yeah, definitely that is something I super resonate with also. And I think one of the things I would like to ask in terms of mentorships and support system for Lina. So we've heard from Michelle from how she started to have these support system around herself and career and also personal life. I'd like to ask for yourself, do you have any people that you could call like your ideal mentor, or do you have any sort of guidance on how young people can start finding the right mentorship?
Yeah, so I'm super lucky. I have, I would say, like 3 mentors I talk to quite regularly, all from different parts of my life. So one's from when I was in school, another from a previous position I worked at, and then one currently she works for a different company but does the same position as me. So I think I've just been really fortunate enough to find people who were willing to mentor. But I would say one thing that goes really like a long way is asking for mentorship, where I've just asked these people if they wouldn't mind meeting with me on a regular basis. And it doesn't have to be so formal, I suppose. Like, for example, one of my mentors, I visit him and we go get coffee together, and then we'll talk about what's going on. And he just gives me a bit of his advice and experience. And I found that to be super helpful. So I would just say, don't be afraid to reach out to people you know, or even to the people within your maybe second branch of network. So for example, my current mentor, who's amazing, I found her through my manager because they worked at a previous company together. And I just asked him if, hey, do you know any women who work in tech that I might be able to have, mentor relationship with? So I would say maybe just ask around your network and see if there's anyone willing, or if there's a more formal system, maybe at your company, you can also look into that. But asking does go a long way. And also, I would just say it's not a one-way relationship where I've done the opposite side of it now, where I've mentored someone. It's really, I guess, fulfilling and inspiring to do. And it's a highlight when I'm able to do things like that. So maybe try not to think of it as a one-way relationship, but really a two-way one.
Wow. Yeah, that's definitely something that I would love to tap on a little bit more. So I myself finding that, I would love to sort of share more time with people that sort of needing some guidance and asking questions. But at the same time, there are a lot of people that, as you said, it's very sort of introvert, right? So it's hard for them to like reaching out to somebody that they barely know or doesn't know. So how did you sort of come from the more proactive side to offer your help, or sort of like initiate the help first?
Yeah, I think it's mostly been opportunities where someone's quite new and they need someone to sort of step in and help anyways. And then we just continue that relationship where if they need anything in the future, they would just keep on coming to me, which I find really great to sustain that relationship past maybe the initial onboarding or training phase. So that's been really great. But yeah, I do understand how it can be hard to almost ask because it feels like you're burdening someone. But in reality, like you just mentioned, we're more than wanting to do it. So I would just say it kind of goes back to maybe taking a leap of faith and understanding that it's a good thing for both people. And to also, I guess, openly offer it as well, as in something as quick as, hey, if you ever need anything, I'm definitely here checking in throughout every maybe 1 or 2 weeks. Things like that go a long way.
I love
Yeah,
that.
and I think, sorry, I was just going to say, I think, finding a common ground between the two people is always good as well. It doesn't necessarily have to start off as a business or a work thing. It could be anything. If you've got a common interest, or you solve a problem together or something like that brings you kind of closer together to begin with, you nurture that relationship going forward because you've already found something that's, a commonality between you.
Yeah, that is a very great tip. I think for somebody has just started their career, for example, we have interns coming into our company here at Calon every single year. And then for them, they're very, very eager to learn, but they're also very shy. But at the same time, I do think that, hey, if they have a common interest with the person that they wanted to seek advice from, it's much easier to initiate that conversation and break ice. So I definitely got to take that tip and move it forward for my next sort of sessions with our interns. So for some conclusions of today's episode, so I would like to ask each of you to offer some key advices for young professionals that seeking maintained long-term career success. So I'd like to maybe dedicate to Michelle first. If you can give 3 top tips for young professionals, what tips would you give?
Okay, so I think the first one and probably the key one for me, and I think it's taken me a while to even to learn this, is don't be afraid to ask questions. Don't be afraid to sound silly in front of somebody if you're not sure about something. 99% of the time, probably the other people in the room are thinking the same thing. So don't be afraid to kind of ask the silly questions, because essentially no questions are really silly. So that's probably one. I think the other one, kind of linking into what you were saying about the interns and everyone's so keen to learn. Also, just take a step back sometimes and just maybe slow down a little bit before jumping into things and really think about what it is you're trying to achieve and how to achieve it, rather than just kind of throwing yourself into it and then having to kind of redo a lot of stuff because you've kind of not thought about it properly. But then I guess the other one would be, don't be afraid to jump into it and go for it as well. So it's a bit of a contradiction there, but some is having that judgment between when to just go for it and when to kind of maybe just step back a little bit and think about it before jumping in. So yeah, that would be my advice.
Thank you so much, Michelle. So I definitely learned a lot from that. I definitely think that it's easier to said than done, especially asking silly questions, right? So even for myself, sometimes I think in my head, I'm curious about this, but I'm not sure if I should say it. But then when I actually say it, I find that the audience that is sitting with me having the same question.
Same question, right? Yeah.
Yeah, and then they're just waiting for somebody to start first. So I think that is very crucial for us to, hey, raise these questions, because if you keep it there and then you never resolve it, it's always going to be a question mark in your mind, and you're never going to resolve the situation. And it's even worse when it comes to, some sort of big decisions, right? So if you're afraid to ask your colleagues or even ask your teammates about, like, hey, am I really reading this right, or am I just not processing it right? So it's okay for us to share that that questions and curiosity when it comes to something we don't know. So thank you for sharing those tips. Yeah. How about you, Lina? If you can give 3 pieces of advice for someone to seeking to maintain long-term career success, what would it be?
I think the first thing that comes to mind is just to make learning fun and not, definitely not a punishment, but also not something you have to do. I find that just in order for me to continue progressing, I always need to be learning new things. And if I view it from the perspective of, oh gosh, I need to learn, let's X topic, or else I won't be able to progress, it puts a lot of pressure and it kind of ruins the initial fun of learning something new. Versus if I look at it as, oh, this is a really good opportunity, it's interesting to see how this works in the real world. I think having that perspective just helps in the long term, where, of course, you could do a really short boot camp on something and you have the skills, but it's often a lot more fun and I think manageable and sustainable for the long term if you're actually enjoying the process. So I would say that's kind of my number one thing that comes to mind. And maybe additionally, as like a second point, just really relying on your support system. If you don't know something, oftentimes, and you're stuck, I'll just go to one of my teammates and they're often like, oh, I actually don't know either, but maybe we can figure it out. And most of the time we do work out something together. So it's sort of a win-win situation. And just having people that you can go to when you need help or you just want a bit of insight goes a really long way. So finding those people, I would say, is really key. And lastly, kind of like what Michelle said, just don't be afraid to kind of try new things. I think at the beginning, I was really willing to just jump right in and I made a lot of mistakes and kind of just, I learned things I would never use again. But now looking back, I'm really happy that I at least tried it. And now a year and a half in, looking back on all of my progress is really kind of rewarding for me to do. So yeah, don't be afraid to try. And you can always, if it's not for you, you can always shift course and adjust, but you won't know until you try it.
Yeah, definitely. I think those are the important fundamental things that we have to do to be able to progress. And I do, love the fact that everybody here, it's really just have to have that support system, right? And building trust with that support system. Because if you, even if you work better alone, doesn't mean that you can solve everything on your own. And I do think that the better together story is not just applicable for business or anything, but individually, if you can find that support system and building trust and give and take, from that system itself and really contribute, people would really find that helpful and for yourself. And I think that it's a blessing to come to work and know that you have the support systems always around and not being afraid to fail or not being afraid to try new things. So that is very important.
Absolutely.
Completely agree.
Sounds good. So thank you so much for such a great talk today. I wish that we have more time, but I think today's sessions were really helpful for not just me, but for also our audience to learn from different aspects from somebody who's very extensive experience for 20 plus year, and somebody has just sort of had the very dynamic background coming into tech. So thank you so much for joining with us today. And I really hope that you can continue to success in your journey, and you will be able to inspire a lot of young women out there who are seeking for career longevity. So thank you so much for joining today.
Thank you for having us. Really enjoyed it.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you so much. And to our audience, that is the wrap of our Women in Tech episode number 5. And stay tuned to episode number 6, where we'll covered another episode with our very special guest. Thank you.